Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with an athlete who turned pro at her fourth show ever and first national show, the 2021 North Americans, while being self-coached and has since competed in 5 pro shows. She works as a competition prep and lifestyle coach, as well as a posing coach, both in person and remotely. Welcome to the show, Jessica Dexter. How are you doing?
Doing so well. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. I'm happy you're here too. And before we get into all the things, I gotta ask if there's anything you do or think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Oh man, I really reflect on the entire prep and, whether it be personal events or just the normal challenges that a prep will hand your way. I really reflect on all of those hard moments and I'm just like proud. Like I just really take in that moment to just absorb everything around me, just consider the fact that I'm so lucky to be competing against the best of the best and all that hard work I've put into it, it is for this exact moment. And I just get so excited. So usually I just reflect on like the challenges and just I'm like, well, I'm here now and I'm doing it. So it's usually like the best motivator ever to just walk out onto the stage.
Yeah, because you're like, I own this because I know everything that went into this moment.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about your pro experience so far, because you've done now, technically, I think you've done as many pro shows as you have amateur slash pro qualifiers, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm still a baby in the pro league. I'm getting my feet wet, but I really wanted to dive in. And some of the shows I've done have been so competitive, but like just incredible for that exact reason. But being that I am still fairly new in the pro league, I am again just astounded by the caliber of excellence around me, whether it be previous Olympia bikini winners or those that are already qualified. I'm just learning. Like I'm always absorbing. I love chatting to girls that are next to me in line, whether they like it or not. I like to get their advice. Some of them have done 40, 50 pro shows. So there's just a wealth of knowledge around you. And it's better to just learn as you go and just meet more people that have, got that experience to give you that hand.
Absolutely. That's part of what inspired this podcast is success leaves clues. And I'm like, I can't be the only one who wants to know what's
Mhm.
going on in the minds of the professionals in this league that we strive to become or emulate, or even who we're sitting next to. Like, I know it's cool when you're like, I heard you on this podcast, and you guys
Mhm.
can already know or connect in that way. And there's a community that we can really foster when we make those connections. So, I'm actually curious now if there's any lessons that have stood out to you over the years that have contributed to you as the athlete you are now.
Probably just realizing that I can't always have perfection. I think that those of us that fall into this sort of sport, we're naturally geared towards perfectionism, ticking the boxes, making the lists. And I love that about myself. It's what drives me in all facets of my life. But when it comes to competition and just show day, the things that can go wrong, you kind of have to learn how to be flexible. So one thing I've learned is that honestly, you learn through failure. Like every single show, I don't want to say every single show, but most shows I've done, there is something that goes awry. And I am so proud of myself because, again, I reflect on maybe me in my earlier 20s looking at the same situation and just having a complete meltdown. But it's about managing your expectations. Obviously, you want to do well, but learning from the mistakes that you make, even on stage. It can be embarrassing, but you'll never make that mistake again. So it's better to have just done it and lived it and laugh at it and grow from there.
Have you made any mistakes that you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could forget that?
Where to even start? So like little things like wardrobe malfunctions at the Texas Pro. I was putting in my earrings really fast because they were ready for us to go out on stage. And as I'm putting my earring in, I drop it and it breaks everywhere, the whole
Oh
thing.
no.
So, it's well, I have one earring that's like this tall and I have one that's like this long, and you just got to send it, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's going to notice it more than anyone else. I've also walked onto stage with a piece of toilet paper on my heel and did my entire
Oh,
routine with that. Yep, in
when did you
quality
notice?
co-productions. Huh?
Oh, Gilco recorded it too.
Yes, it is in like HD quality of a toilet paper. And I didn't even use the bathroom. So it's just look at your surroundings everywhere you are, check everything. But at the end of the day, again, if that sort of stuff happens, it can be disappointing in the moment, but I can now reflect and be like, these are the things that I'll ensure will not happen again.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if that video is posted. If it is, I was like, I never saw that.
He probably made a respectable decision not to post it, but I do have it myself and I keep it and just laugh. I mean, I look great, but I don't know what was going on.
Oh my goodness. I cannot imagine. Well, I'm glad it was on your heel and not somewhere else because that would have been
Yeah.
really embarrassing. And also what a great lesson too to like look at your surroundings because it's easy to forget that. Now, did you feel it on stage or when did you realize?
I realized it after I walked off. I
Oh,
looked and I asked everyone around me, was that on my heel the entire time? No one knew,
yeah.
it was a blur. But just those little things that seem so silly and arduous, but like they really do mess with your psyche when you're backstage. So you just have to keep like a positive mentality despite those little tiny silly obstacles that will happen inevitably at some point or another.
Exactly. It's really like hearing these stories too. I I know that from a competitor perspective, it gives me more forethought the next time I go on stage where there were certain things I would have never thought about until they happened to me, like, oh, my suit broke the night before. I should probably either learn how to sew, which luckily I knew how to sew and I fixed it, or have a backup suit. And I did, but it was too big and I couldn't sew that. So there's certain things you learn from mistakes or always having an extra pair of heels because
Yeah.
we see girls backstage who forget theirs, so it's nice to loan them or
Mhm.
they break. And you don't want that to happen when you're on stage or like you said the earring situation. Like I always wear clip-ons personally, but I'm thinking I should probably get an extra pair just from what you've shared.
Yeah, exactly. And just you take that knowledge and apply it to the next show and you're obviously hoping to just reach this like standard of excellence that you've set for yourself, but it is just those little things along the way and that'll come with experience and time and more, opportunities to go on stage.
Definitely. Now, you said that's something that you really value is standing among the best of the best.
Yes.
And you did an amazing job throughout your pro debut. And at one of them, you placed second, which is huge. So, what was
Yes.
that moment like for you?
Surreal because the girl that took it already was qualified and so and girls that got or third and fourth I believe ended up qualifying and so just to know I stood amongst them and I was competitive in that regard just really validated so much work because you know uh, with my experience I haven't always had a second eye or someone that's really creating the plan for me. So it's been I've had to have a lot of self-confidence and doubt will always come up, but that was that moment of, you know what, I've got this. And so for last year, 2023, I really set the standard for myself where I didn't know who was going to go to what show because you never really do until, unless they announce it. Um, but I knew that I was going to be going against a higher caliber. I wanted to go against the best of the best. I knew a former Miss Olympia was going to be at two of those shows, and it didn't scare me. It just made me so hungry and excited to see where I stacked up. So yeah, the second place was amazing though. I mean, I couldn't have fathomed it. And I was so new in the pro league really that, I had tunnel vision to do well. And I completely forgot that we won money.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I got the second place and then they gave me the check and I was like, oh yeah, that's like what we're doing. Like,
That's a
We
thing now.
things.
You're like, I'm so used to spending all this money.
Yeah, so it was cool because I learned like little things along the way, and yeah, that was just so motivating, and exactly what I needed at that time to just kind of really put my like I said, tunnel vision toward the next year and who I wanted to go against, and kind of travel and do more, prestigious shows, I guess you could say.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that putting yourself in that position to go against people in the top spots or who are qualifying for the Olympia allows you to see what gaps you might need to fill, or it also shows you that, hey, maybe I'm closer than I thought that I was. So,
Yeah.
what was the feedback you got, and how are you working on that now?
Really, for me, I know that there's size, you look at the girls next to you, you see how kind of like what their proportions really are. Social media can only do so much, right? Like everyone can kind of put their best face on and their best like pose in their Instagram page, but comparing the actual size, I feel like a lot of bikini competitors, but myself included, I need to continue growing my delts, and I need to definitely continue growing my glutes. I think that's always going to be our focus, for most of us. But getting to compare my butt next to some of the best, it's like, well, let's see what we need to do. So that is currently like I'm in my bulk, and I am really trying to put on some like great, muscle where I need it.
Love that. I like that you emphasize that with excitement versus dread. So clearly you're committed to your improvement season as much as you are your prep. You're willing to do what needs to be done to grow. What does that look like for you, maybe compared to what some people are used to seeing on social media, or maybe yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm guilty of this too with social media. If you go on my Instagram page, the vast majority of the stuff I'm posting is typically in season. So I am pretty lean, and my physique doesn't look the same. I'm about 20 pounds heavier right now. So it's always important for especially bikini girls to keep that in mind. You see some of your favorites always shredded, but some of us are kind of just in hiding. And it's not that I want to be, inauthentic. I want to be honest about the bulk versus the cut, but that's just one thing to consider. When I'm in my bulk, I mean, again, I just really want to enjoy my food, but make sure it's really fueling me. I mean, there's nothing better than having a lot of carbs in you and like knocking out a leg workout. You may feel a little like groggy because you're just so overloaded with food, but you'll miss it when you're dieting. So just to really consider like the two, ends of the spectrum and just enjoying it for what it is in each of those seasons.
Love that. And I think even though I don't place too much emphasis on the numbers, I think it's so important, especially now, because so many people will share when they're maybe 5 to 10 pounds up from stage weight and they think, oh, this is normal. But oftentimes, to push that growth, you are sometimes looking at a higher number on the scale, and we
Yeah.
can't be too afraid of that. Like, I myself am literally, yeah, I think 20 pounds up. I don't even know. Now I can't do math properly, but you kind of push that limit, but every time I've gone up, and there's some points where I've probably pushed too far for sure, but not intentionally. However, the return on that investment of an improvement season was major, and that taught me the value of doing that. So I think it's great how, although maybe you're not sharing the photos as much, it's great that you're still promoting that this is important.
Yeah, especially just the quality of time that you should spend in a bulk. There are some people that really have grown their bodies to the point where, they can kind of just zip back and forth, and they do a lot of shows in a year, and that's great for them. But for most of us, we are still we really need to build. So taking like that quality time away from the stage, I sure miss it, but again, like right now I'm bulkier, it's cold outside, like I've just got to like hit it with, my strength. And yeah, like you said, as you start to diet down, you really reap the rewards of like having that moment of, kind of hiding away and just putting in the work. I mean, it's not all about, what you're showing, it's about what you're actually doing. So it makes me excited.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Like when you embrace that excitement side of it, where like, oh my gosh, like this, what I'm going through now means something better, not just later today in my workout, but also better in 8 months or a year from now. It's
Yeah.
a very long-term mindset, but it's so rewarding and it gets you engaged in the process, I think, in a more healthy way at times too.
Correct. I mean, that's one thing I'll say is I've never had a negative relationship with food, and I'm very grateful for that. This sport, definitely contests that. So just again, when you, like you said, stepping on the scale for me, seeing a higher number, unless I'm deep into a prep and I'm trying to lose weight, other than that, I usually kind of get excited to see that scale going up. I mean, it means I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it just means that when we etch away at that fat and build down, the physique for the stage, it's going to look so much better than last year because you've done the work in between.
Yes, great point. I feel like if you fixate on the number, you'll limit your potential versus
Exactly.
like, okay, I'm doing what needs to be done. I look good still. You're still in bikini shape, right? You still got what you need. You're just adding clay almost on top of this sculpture. And then eventually you'll carve that back down. And I always try to remind myself too, like nothing is permanent. Like this improvement season's not permanent. My next prep body's not permanent. In this sport, it's kind of given me a way to be in my body and be judged, but in a healthy way. Like growing up, it's like maybe you get bullied. I know for me, it was like I was judged or bullied for how I looked. And what I did, I put myself on a bodybuilding stage, subjecting myself to a set of criteria that I want to be subjected to. I'm in control of that and it feels good. It's like a positive approach versus not one, as far as I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. Yeah.
Well, it's great that you're so comfortable with it too. And I love to hear when people's mental health has been maintained and even potentially grown. And I know you've made mention to the fact that bodybuilding has really changed your life. So maybe walk us through how that's happened and what life was like before bodybuilding.
Yeah, so I kind of joke around and tell people when they ask about the sport of bodybuilding if they don't compete. Usually the people that fall in love with the sport are either those that were always athletes and for them having a clear vision, direction, and goal to work towards was for them. Or you could be like me, which is the latter. And that's the one who just sort of has no control at all of life. And it just feels like I was living in this victim mentality for so long. I was in college. I'm 29 now, but I was 21, 22 at the time. And I just remember being so depressed. And I mean, I've always struggled with depression and anxiety, but I didn't feel like I had any control. And I just realized that you need to put yourself out there and do something for you. And I never had an issue with my body. Like it was fine. It was one of those like very skinny things. So that was, that wasn't really my focus, but for me, it was just spending time for myself, doing something and actually seeing the results of your hard work. So it took not too long for me to fall in love with working out, but I never did it with the intention of competing. That was not something that was even on my radar. But just, going to the gym, creating routine and structure. I fell in love with that because I no longer felt like I said, a victim to my circumstances. Things may not be easy, but you can do something to better yourself in any capacity that, finds your way. But for me, it was weightlifting. And so I really was able to take that and roll with it. And life has just transformed in so many wonderful ways. And it's all because of bodybuilding.
That's so amazing. I think that's also very encouraging for the person who might not be sure if they want to compete. Maybe they're hearing a lot of the horror stories because unfortunately, that's generally talked about quite a bit online too. So maybe they're hearing a lot of the horror stories, but they get to hear someone like you say, no, it's had nothing but positive impact on my life and made me better. But I know that even before you committed to competing for the first time, there was some worry about judgment, how much support you would get. What was the fear of judgment or misunderstanding? Like, where was that coming from? And how did your first experience actually end up reducing those fears?
Yeah, so because I wasn't really surrounded by many people that did the sport, I lived in Florida at the time, so there is a better gym culture there, and that was motivating. But when I decided to become competitive, you considered the actual fact of the matter of I'm going to be walking on stage in a tiny little bikini, and to discuss that with people that are not knowledgeable of the sport, I had just these fears of judgment of, they don't really take the sport seriously. Maybe they don't take the bikini division very seriously. And, just having like a bad rep from that. But again, it was because I was not at all submerged in the community. I started bodybuilding without a coach, as I'd said. So I just felt like I was very alone at that time. I was happy to do it and I knew what my purpose was, but I was just fearful that people I grew up with, family, whoever, if I told them that this is what I wanted to do, that it would just be perceived negatively or be misunderstood.
Yeah, especially when I think sometimes there is that misinterpretation of the bikini division.
Yeah.
And some of the research, at least when you were starting it, when you'd be researching it, it'd be a mixed amount, like some of the old, some of the new. Maybe it was confused or mixed up with other types of displays of someone's body, and it wasn't so much focused on bodybuilding, right? Like it wasn't put in the same category, even though it is. So aside from that, you were also told by naysayers that you couldn't do it without a coach. So
Yeah.
and some people still have that fear, I think, to this day. So what would you tell someone else who wants to prep themselves?
Yeah. So, I think that it's smart to have a coach. I am very thankful that I now have that guidance, but I was, young, so passionate. I had years of bodybuilding or, I guess strength training under my belt. And I was pretty confident and comfortable with knowing my body as far as like cutting and bulking. I'd done that by myself before ever considering competing. So I do think you have to have a pretty good base of understanding as far as what it means to diet, and diet safely. Um, so if anyone's looking to do it themselves, I know most people say it can't be done, but I know I'm living proof that that's not true. It just takes a lot of self-confidence and awareness. Also just networking, because I did start this alone, but as I said, I'm just such a chatty Cathy backstage that I'm trying to soak up as much information as I can because I don't have a coach in my ear. Well, I'm going to learn from the girls around me that are doing it better or have had more experience. Even just, competing, I've now created such a beautiful community of friends. So I don't feel so alone. Even when I was still self-coached, I didn't feel alone in those moments because of the people that I'd met that were supportive of the sport.
Wow. How did you coach yourself compared to now that you have a coach?
So I don't want to say I just winged it because again, I'm a planner. But I wasn't doing like weekly check-ins for myself. I don't know. It was kind of messy, I'd say, but I did execute it fairly well, so I don't want to discredit that. But I'm very thankful for having a coach now just because of the commit the yeah, like the necessity of staying committed and having a set expectation of you are going to take check-ins every week. And I regret that about being self-coached. I could have done that. But now I wish I had all of like those weekly check-ins that I could have taken just to show like the transformation and growth. But it is a learning curve. I think that it can be done. It just takes, like I said, a lot of self-confidence and then a lot of knowledge. I think I was lucky to kind of fall in love with the sport when I did because it was the early days of Instagram. There were people that were like fit influencers, but it really wasn't as prevalent as it is today. And while I do find that content to be so fantastic, and I'm really pleased to see younger generations picking up weights sooner than I did, I also think that it was a positive that I didn't have that because it didn't get me too overwhelmed with the set expectations. Like I very much was blind walking in and fell in love with it for what it was, not for seeing people, and what they post and being like, that's what I need to do. It was never some sort of competition for me in that regard. And so while I do find the amount of information online to be really helpful now, it also could be a detriment in some respects. So I'm thankful I fell in love with it when I did.
Are you a competitor looking to make mental gains and further your personal development? Are you struggling with the post show blues or feeling the pressure of prep? Maybe you're lost somewhere in the middle and not sure what's next. If you really want to make peace with food, your body, and your goals, then I highly recommend you check out my competitor card deck, which can be found at www.celestial.fit/cards. This is a free resource for competitors, and the deck includes 3 different series. One is affirmations and I am statements, another is the thought-provoking question prompts that you could journal on or just think about, and the last deck includes action steps with specific mentorship that is going to support you in those areas of which I just mentioned. So whether you're looking to feel better in your own skin, develop a healthier relationship with food, feel more motivated, connect deeply with yourself, or really get into your mindset to bring you closer to your goals, then these cards are for you, and I would love to see you utilizing them. Again, you can visit www.celestial.fit/cards to download yours right away.
Definitely. I feel like sometimes the information is really good, but then if you have too much noise, it's just very loud. So I can see how having less information coming in to play would actually be potentially beneficial. But I'm sure there were likely maybe some other benefits too. Like, at least how I would see it is maybe you're even more tuned in to what you're doing as opposed
Yeah.
to just going on autopilot mode for like, okay, I'm just doing what my coach tells me. So have you found that with your coach now, it's been a collaborative effort, or is it still like, is it just, hey, he or she's going to handle it?
Yeah, so him and I have it's very much collaborative. He knows that I don't want to say kicking my heels about getting a coach. I did approach him, but we've been friends for quite some time, so he knows my personality. He knows what he's getting himself into when he had me as his athlete. He also knows my background as not having had a coach before, so um, it can be challenging maybe because I could be a little bit more difficult to work with. I don't think I'm difficult, but because I have this background of doing it alone, it may be a little harder for me to just respond and be like, "Yes, sir."
Right.
So I'm glad that we have a good strong friendship that started it, because I think he just knows my personality very well, and we were able to really mesh and, like you said, collaborate in such a way that we had such a fun season last year. It's just made me that much more excited for next or this year.
Oh, that's so awesome. I know he had done his I think his pro debut when you were competing as well. So what was that like to compete together?
Just phenomenal. I mean, again, he is such a great coach. I'd seen him prior to us working together. I'd seen him work with athletes in the past, and the reason why I wanted to work with Justin is because he is locked in. I've never seen a coach so passionate about his athletes, and I mean, on it. And I just knew that he was going to be the perfect fit. Now, when I found out we were both going to do the show in Texas, I did have a moment of, oh my gosh, like, how is this going to work? Like, he is going to be so focused on his pro debut that he may not be able to, provide me with the support that I need. But that definitely wasn't the case. Again, I think he's just so passionate about his athletes. Like, he gave 100% toward his prep, but on that show day, we were both backstage and the whole earring thing happened with him, and we kept it cool. And so I think that's just a testament to how good he is as a coach. Honestly, I don't know if I would manage maybe coaching someone on the same day I'm walking on stage, but that was just all the support I needed, and kind of really helped me learn how to better be a better coach myself, because that was very impressive.
Yeah, that's super awesome. And it's rare to hear about that. Now, do you think your self-coaching experience has also changed the way you approach clients?
Um, I'll say it kind of helps me meet them where they're at. So, for example, a large part of why I didn't hire a coach sooner was because, to be quite frank, I did not have the money. And bodybuilding is an expensive sport. And I think that when I, meet younger girls that are interested in becoming bikini athletes, I really try to level with them and understand that, like, this is an expensive sport. If there's any way that I can help you, like, it doesn't all have to be a trade of finance, like financials. Like, I'm happy to just help girls like that reach out to me that can't afford coaching. If they just have questions, I'm ready to meet them where they're at, just because I remember being in their shoes. And I want to always, of course, inspire people. Again, with my story of being self-coached, I think that it's possible. And if you have a good base, like, we can rock with it. So a lot of times I meet girls that are interested, but they're not sure if they can afford it. And they also don't know if they have the base to like really start a prep yet. And I'm always here to like provide feedback or give them advice and motivation. And usually those are the girls that are then attracted to working with me, because they realize that I'm not just here for a check. I'm really here to like help you on, it's cliche, but your journey, to really feeling confident about the prospect of stepping on stage.
That was something I wanted to ask more specifically about for those people who maybe can't afford a coach or who don't have the means to do that. Maybe they're even saving for that. What would be some of the non-negotiables or maybe recommendations you would make to someone in that position for managing their own coaching process?
Yeah. Again, just realistic expectations and really mapping out your timeline. You don't have a coach doing that work for you. So you have to decide on a show and really like figure out, what am I going to do each week to work toward that goal? Not kill yourself in the gym. You still need to have the energy. So still, don't starve yourself silly. Of course, we're going to feel hungry, but again, I think just having like, I feel like someone, if they're going to coach themselves, is going to need years of really kind of doing it for fun on the side, like not with the expectation of going on stage, but really learn like how you can push your body in a bulk and really learn how you can diet that off in measured time, like increments. We're not doing a crash diet. We're really being like smart and calculating, weeks out, and how am I going to get to point B from here. So it just takes a lot of like experience doing it in your own world, not thinking about the stage. And then once you have a good handle of that, it's going to feel a little less intimidating to walk on that stage.
That's really good advice and insight, even for someone who's probably looking to hire a coach to enjoy some of that process or get comfortable. But I especially like that for those who are considering self-coaching, like to navigate those processes without maybe the pressure of a stage date or a
Right.
competition date, at least know that you could take yourself through that. Did you also coach your own posing?
Yeah, I know so many girls that come on your podcast share the same story, but I have a background in ballet. So I think a lot of us ladies that have got a dance background, we're used to walking on stage. We're used to kind of giving it a little bit of, it's a little dancey. Like, my posing is usually a little dancey. You can tell that I've danced. It's a little less rigid, it's a little more flowy. But I find that a lot of girls I meet have that background. So it makes sense that we've kind of gravitated towards the more muscular dance of it all.
Yes. So true. It's really amazing how you can almost continue that passion into a sport like this.
Yeah.
Now, how did you actually develop your routine? Was it with the dance background in mind, or were you like watching and applying and trying things? Like, how did you actually get to the point where you had a routine?
Um, Honestly, a lot of watching, and everyone's got their own style. That's what's really nice about it. You do have that freedom to make it yours. So there are going to be those like mandatory poses that you need to hit, and everyone loves a good transition. But everyone's got their own little style and their own flair. So I love just watching, the Olympia. I love watching every single girl. They all look phenomenal, but they're all bringing their own like spice. And then I consider my own routine and what works for my body. And yeah, just having fun with it. I never want to feel rigid in my movement. I like that more like flowy, dancey sort of vibe. For me, the importance is like slowing down, because I get so carried away with, whatever like the DJ has control of the music, right? So if you're walking out there to some like EDM, you kind of almost like fall into this, like, I got to dance with it, but slow down. That is like the
Yeah.
one thing I will say, slow down. And everything else will, fall into place.
I feel like that would be the tricky part with a dance background is that you're used to like listening for the music when you're on stage versus someone like me who has no dance background. I don't know what the heck is being played, you know?
Yeah, the first time I ever walked on stage, like as an amateur, it was this really fast-paced EDM music. And of course, my first time on stage, I'm gonna be rushing a little bit, but I was on super speed mode. So,
Oh, that's tough. But you know what? That's one of those things you learn from. And I went really fast at one of my shows and I was told to slow down. So then I like came up with like, okay, let me think of a song that's gonna really slow me down. And then I came up to the stage the next time and I ended up being way too slow. So
yeah.
I'm like, okay, somewhere in between. And it's good to learn from that. Now, when you're coaching posing, and you're
Mhm.
approaching this with others who maybe don't have that flowy style or don't have that dance background, how do you navigate them having that same confidence on stage?
Right. So some of them will talk to me and be like, I just want to look like you, or I want to look like insert pro bikini girl here. And I love that. Like, it's great to have goals and aspire to look absolutely fantastic. And of course, with any sort of posing, you're probably hiring a posing coach to improve that. But I try to remind those girls, especially those that have never been on stage, ultimately, the only thing the judges are going to be judging critically is your front and your back pose. Now, I know, we want to walk out there with confidence. You don't want to look like someone that can't walk in heels or a robot. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to just realize that the rest of it is all thrills. Like, it's fun, it's nice, it's dancey, it's the glam, but we just need to make sure your front and your back pose are good. And then from there, we can kind of work on, creating more of a routine and more of a flow. So I try to tell them not to, again, have that whole comparison thing. When I started, I didn't have a lot of people to compare myself to because there wasn't as much exposure online. But you can't expect to walk out your first time ever competing and look like Miss Olympia. You won't, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've learned too, like your routine evolves over time with your physique or maybe the
Your
way that the
hair.
industry, yes, the hair or maybe like muscular development, like,
Mhm.
maybe you can get away with showing this, but now maybe you can't. And then even attending the women's seminar as for an amateur and hearing Etela say how they really don't want all the frills, right? So much of us are so focused on how to make it flowy and pretty and match something like the energy what we see a pro do. But in reality, like they're just looking for us to hit our poses. And that's
Yes.
something I'm now like trying to reel back in of like, okay, I need to actually slow it down and make sure that my glutes are level, my shoulders are in the same spot. Like let that kind of go back to the basics.
Yeah. It's good to create a fun package, but like you said, they're ultimately like they want you to actually securely hit those poses. I don't want you to just dance through them. So just taking your time and yeah, perfecting your front and back pose. Another thing to touch on too is just when someone is in season or and they're in prep and they're losing weight, your poses could change just based on what your figure starts to look like once you drop some of that body fat. So staying on top of your posing, like I tell people to pose all year. Like again, 20 pounds up right now, but I might put my heels on today and practice in the gym for 10 minutes. I might not like the way it looks so much, but it's important to kind of keep it in your mind just so that when you are 12 weeks out, you're not like, oh no, what am I going to do?
Exactly. No, that's such good advice because we all need that reminder to put the heels on and practice regardless. I would say the biggest difference in posing happened for me when I actually practiced through an entire improvement season, even when I got up to way higher of a weight than I am even now. But it was being in the heels and it gave me so much confidence because I could just do it year round. And I started being able to wear heels out and I was comfortable with it, and I was like, "Huh, this is really interesting how just doing it, whether or not it's your routine you're gonna end up doing later, obviously, hopefully, it's similar, but, like, just having the confidence in the heels can go a long way."
Right, because you're not going to have a mirror on stage either. So, just making it almost like second nature to you to like feel the poses. And you can only do that by practicing all year.
That's a good point too. Yeah, not using a mirror. So I didn't ask you this earlier and I should have, but did you desire to go pro from right when you started, or when did that go on your radar?
Oh boy. I was aware of the pro league, and of course, I think all of us that compete want to win. So, the pro league was a consideration, but to be quite frank with you, I was so new to the sport. It was my third show, I think. The last amateur show I did, I won the overall, and I was excited. But I was like, oh, I don't have what it takes to turn pro. Like, I probably need 1 or 2 good more years to build, and maybe I'll do a national show. But everyone I met that day backstage was like, "You're going to nationals in 2 weeks, right?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "You were out of your mind. Like, we are gonna force you to go. Like, you have to go." So I it wasn't until that day that I was like, "Wait a minute. Like, do I have what it takes?" And just on a whim decided to get the hotel in Pittsburgh and make the drive. And then 2 weeks later, I was a professional. And I was like, because if it wasn't for those people, again, meeting people in the community that actually want to see you like grow and do your best, and they were just so great and supportive that I was like, okay, maybe they're onto something. But if it wasn't for them, I probably still would not have even tried a national show.
Yeah, wow. That's so crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. It is wild how everything works out. Like, I switched the show that I was gonna do um a few weeks out. Like, I was supposed to do another one, but because I chose that show, I met those people. And just, I hate the cliche everything happens for a reason, but like, too many things in my life have fallen into it's beautiful, like the way everything is transpired, that I'm like, there's something bigger than this. Like, there is reason. Timing is so important. So I am so insanely blessed that I met those people that, supported me and told me that I had what it took. And yeah, like 2 weeks later, a new IFBB pro. So
So amazing. And at your first national show and without a coach.
yeah, all of those things. I had so many, self-doubts, of course, like all of us do, but without a second eye too, you're just like, am I making this up? Is this like, do I have what it takes? But it winning first in my class at the Pittsburgh show, North Americans, it was so surreal. Like, I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when you got your pro card and obviously you came to this point of, wow, everything really happens for a reason and it was all in the right timing.
Yeah.
Was there anything else going on in your life that might have been contributing to the way you were feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I started to bodybuild. So I was married, and I had started to prep for my first year of competing. During that time, we made a move, and our marriage was not doing very well. And so we separated at the beginning of 2021. And so that summer was my contest prep, where I then turned pro. And, just the amount of challenges personally, like, kind of having to recognize that my marriage failed. I live somewhere because we relocated together. I now live somewhere where I don't know anyone. Like, I don't have support. I truly do feel alone. I put everything I had into that prep just to honestly stay sane. For me, it really, like, bodybuilding and the contest prep of it all, it can really wear some people down mentally, and I get that. But for me, it was like my energy supply. It was like I threw everything at that prep because I didn't have anything else. It was so like, it was very, very hard. But yeah, winning my pro card, it was like 5 months after the separation. And,
Wow.
I was just like, wow, like, look at what I did. And I did it by myself.
That is
It was,
amazing. I had no idea, and that just speaks even more to your drive and your resilience and how much bodybuilding has uplifted you through
mhm.
those types of challenges. And now I'm trying to go back to that time with you and imagine, like, I don't know if the separation was pretty smooth because you guys were both like, let's do this, or were there difficulties with actually coming to terms with that? Because it's usually, I mean, if you upend your whole life and move somewhere with someone, now you're looking at possessions and things that we've created together. So how was that separation process?
I mean, it was messy, but not so messy. I mean, I think for me, there was a lot of ego wrapped up in that. I think we both recognized that we were not, suitable for one another, and we separated as amicably as one can. But at the same time, I had so much ego wrapped up, and I had a lot of pride in being married and having the house and having the cars and having the animals and just having this like perfect looking life. So for me to walk away from that and have absolutely nothing, I was terrified just because I didn't know what I was going to do. But I also felt a lot of shame because I knew that, there would be some people that saw that and would think less of me. And that's not the correct mindset to have. But to be frank, that is how I felt. So I just threw everything I had at this prep because it's all I had for myself. It was mine, it was nobody else's. And I had all the control. I think we all love control. And so I really like just went for it. But though, I mean, I look back at those times and I smile because they were so hard. I was living, I still live with my friend now, but at the time I just moved in with her and I had a mattress on the floor and, I was just bumming it. But that was the contest prep. And I look back at that moment and I'm like, you freaking did it. Like, good for you. Like, I'm so proud of you, for kind of coming all the way from the bottom up.
Wow, that is so cool. Honestly, I'm so impressed and inspired. I think that speaks so much to your character as well, to be able to fight for yourself and also to openly share that there was some shame around that. I think when we obtain certain ideals in life, we can become so attached to them that we forget how we're feeling within those ideals. Now,
Yeah.
then you enter the dating world, and right before your prep, and you and your current boyfriend started dating right before that. And you said that it took multiple dates to really determine who was the right fit for you. So how did you go about that? I feel like dating is kind of like an interview process.
Yeah.
So how did you go about figuring out who would be the right fit?
Um, just again, because naturally on a date, they're going to ask me about bodybuilding. It's my bread and my butter. I love it. If talking to someone and you're realizing that they don't really know much, and again, they don't have to be bodybuilding experts, but it's important that they may understand, nutritional values on things. Like I want to be able to talk to you about my proteins and my carbs and
Exactly.
fats without it being like a big, educational thing. But mostly again, just the respect and the grace and the patience of a prep. Because like you said, I started dating my boyfriend maybe just a month or two before my prep. And I warned him, I prepared him, and he said, okay. But I'm like, well, once we're in it, it might not be that fun because he loves going out to eat and he loves getting a drink. But I told him, I'm like, I value this relationship and I want you to know that while this is a very stressful time, I don't want to put us on the back burner. I'm going to do, what I need to do to ensure that our needs are met, but I'm still 100% on my goals. So whether that be that I meet you at the bar and just drink water and you drink your whiskey, that's great. But having someone that respects that and isn't going to be like, well, come on, it's just one drink. And, they understand the goal and they are more than happy to do whatever it takes to help support you, whether it be cook your chicken and your rice and your laundry, whatever it is. Like any sort of assistance like that, it's acknowledgement of how much work that I'm doing. And I just appreciate that more than anything.
That is awesome. I really like how you explained that boundary you almost set, like with yourself, even like don't put this relationship on the back burner, but also don't put yourself on the back burner or your goals on the back burner for the relationship. I had just spoken on another podcast. They were asking me, like, what can you do to maintain or maybe grow in a relationship? And one of the things I mentioned was you have to prepare your partner for what to expect and help them through that process. And especially when they are the type who are going to go out to eat and drink, So I think it's really cool that you were able to say, I respect that you want to do that, as long as you also respect that I'm going to be doing this.
Yeah, it's not like a guilt-driven thing, because that's the one thing I've learned is that love is not built on fear, obligation, or guilt. So, you want to support your partner because you care about what they care about. Like, it may be a sacrifice for him to not take the lavish vacations right now because I can't eat off my plan, but he knows that, like, me potentially winning a show, we would share that success together, because it takes a village, and I'm saying that as someone that, again, was self-coached with no one in my corner for a hot minute. I think that everybody around you that's a part of your journey, whether they're your freaking coworkers or they're, your Starbucks, I don't know, whoever it is, like, they were part of that.
Totally. Yes, I love that. Like the people we come in contact with have an impact. Like I remember at my old gym in Arizona where I used to live, like I moved there not looking like I was a competitor. I didn't look like it to most people because I was deep in improvement season. So they didn't know anything about me, but they watched me go from that to prep and going, and they carried me through a lot of it. They were so supportive and amazing. Even just seeing them
Yeah.
throughout those times, it was like, yeah, I might have been doing the workouts alone, but maybe one of them would come over and add an extra weight and see how I could do. And that was really cool. I'd go to Dutch Bros and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, it's you again." And that was always nice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I still remember my first year competing with not a lot of knowledge, but the people at my gym that did know what I was up to, they would be like cheering me on. And I still talk to I've moved out of state since then, but some of them are still like I remember them, and it makes me feel so happy and supported and just thankful that they were there at a time when I probably did need that encouragement.
Definitely. Yeah, especially if you feel like you're alone most of the times, to be able to have a community in the gym is really nice. And it is difficult to move somewhere new and not have that as well.
Yeah, living in Florida, I was in like a bodybuilding mecca. Like, you go into any great gym and there's probably going to be a handful of pros in them. But where I live now, I think I'm like one out of, I think there's another pro around here, but there's like 100-mile radius between us. There's not as much activity in bodybuilding over here in the Carolinas, but I've found the support where I need it. And that's the great thing about social media too. I'm talking so negatively about it in some respects, but at the same time, it's kept me connected with all the people that I knew in Florida, as well as all the people I've met across, the states, depending on what show I've done. So that's been really great.
Yeah, I just moved to South Carolina myself. So yeah, I'm in Greenville. Yeah.
That's awesome. I used to live there.
Oh, really? That's amazing. Well, you'll have to come visit me because I'm building a studio in here so we can.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you. So, but I was gonna say I found the same thing. Like compared to Arizona, I grew up in Southern California and then I moved to Arizona. I felt, wow, Arizona hasn't even, well, compared to the suburb I was in Cali anyways. But then Arizona was like awesome bodybuilding community and friends. Everyone is like fit there, I felt
Yeah,
like. And then I moved here and I was like, the vibe is different. It's just I go
it
to the gym
is.
and I like don't I'm trying. I think I need to try out some different gyms as well, but like I think I have like three different members. Yeah, I have three different memberships I'm rotating right now. I want to go check out. There's a few other on my radar. Um, but it's hard. It's harder here, I think, for what you said. There's less of us.
Yeah, there's definitely less of us, but then you get really connected. Now, I'm excited that you live in the Carolinas now, because yeah, you'll probably become really connected with all of my people that I have. A lot of them live in Charlotte and, other cities, but we have a nice little group, but it's just not very big. So yeah, when I'm at the gym, I typically get a lot of questions just because people are not familiar with this sport at all.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to help out with some of the Clash show stuff, and then I'm gonna be probably going to an event in North Carolina soon for Lauren Adams. So
Cool.
I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, well, and then of course I'm connected with well, there's another pro here, Kate Aurora. So she's like
Oh,
very
yeah,
close to me. Yep.
yeah.
And then, oh,
Fun fact, she was one of the people I met at my last amateur show that said, "You have to go to nationals." She's like, "You would kick my ass." And I said,
I
"No."
believe that.
She
I
is the
believe that
sweetest
she would
thing.
say that. She is so sweet. We're going for a walk later today, so it's so funny. Yeah, we will be chatting about that. I'll mention to her that we connected today, and she'll be like, "Oh my gosh!" And yes, she told me, "Oh, you got to get connected with Mo." And then I met Mo when I went and spoke at the women's workshop, and Mo and I are like practically neighbors. And I was like, "This is crazy!" Like,
That's
it's a
awesome.
so it's a little, here and there. And then when I saw obviously that you were here too, I was like, "Okay, so I'm not alone."
Yeah, we definitely will cross paths then. That is exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So, anything I didn't ask you that I should have before I get into your best advice?
I don't think so. Yeah, I've had
Okay.
fun over here.
Awesome. Well, then, what would be your best advice for someone who has never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for somebody who's on their road to pro?
Best advice for someone that's never competed. I think I mentioned it before. Again, just you have to, it's great to aspire and have people that inspire you and you look to them, but ultimately you have to look inward, because it's as corny as it sounds. It's like you are competing against others, but ultimately if you're going to last in the sport, you have to fall in love with the competitive nature of you versus you. Yes, you are being compared to other women sat next to you, but it's the only way to really like channel your best self and really get out there, especially as a first time competitor, is realizing that like you're setting the standard. And after this first time on stage, every time you step on, you're going to be comparing it to your last. And that is the thing that should motivate you. It should not be the external factors and the people that have come before you. Just kind of staying true to yourself and why you started in the first place. That will carry you the whole way. That's going to be what I would recommend to someone that's never competed. For those that are seasoned and are continuing to like strive for the pro card, pretty much the same advice, but also just like having a hard having the hard conversation with yourself and looking at yourself and maybe coming to terms with those things that need to be improved on. I think bikini gets like this weird rap where, because we are like the smaller female division, some people will see that and be like, well, it's easy, anyone can do it. But we actually do need to put on like quality muscle and size, and it takes time. And while you could do shows all year every year and enjoy it, to really see like that difference between amateur and pro, what are those missing gaps? Like, what do we need to figure out and fill in? And the hard answer for some is more time off. No one wants to hear that. Like, I've hated, times where girls want me to coach them and they have a passion for the gym, but maybe they've only been doing it for 6 months. I applaud them and I want them to continue doing that, but I would be irresponsible to tell those women, yes, you are going to look great in 4 months' time after I've dieted you, because realistically, no, the muscle mass is just not there. And even if you've competed for several years, really take like a hard look at yourself and be critical. Just have that moment of like, what are the judges telling me year after year? And what do I have to do to get from point A to point B? It may be taking a year off. And that's not something that I'm even against doing myself. Just to share, like, I'm going to compete this year, but if my placings are staying the same, it's going to be hard, but I'm willing to take the whole next year off if it means coming back with a vengeance, because I've seen it done. And I mean, it just takes that time and that patience.
Yes, all of that is such great advice, and I like how you're gonna apply that to yourself too, and just having that patience or that ability to go back to the drawing board when necessary.
Yeah, it can be hard, especially once you've like, identified as a pro and you're like, I'm the best. No, we're always working on ourselves. We're always trying to level up. And my last competitive season, I did place top 10 for the most part, but like not as well as my second place the prior year. And I could be okay with just doing that. But in my heart, I know I have so much more in me to throw at this sport. And I want to last a while. Like, I don't want this to be over next year. I want to go into my 30s and really like do the thing. So if that means taking a year off, I'll be sad about it. But you have to remember, like, future you will thank you if you do that for yourself now.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a great perspective because if you want to be in it for a long time, you need to be willing to step back when it's necessary.
Yeah. So that's like my mindset right now, but I am still focused on competing this year and I'm so excited for that to start.
When does that start?
Uh, so I have an idea of my timeline. I'm not close to prep just yet, but I think, the sweet spot, like usually mid-July or August, just because it's kind of better for like anyone that lives in a place like we do now. There's seasons. So I like to have my extra layers when it's as
Yeah.
cold as
Yeah.
in the summer. You want to look hot. So some of the shows that I have in mind, my thing is that I really want to use bodybuilding to explore America more. Like, I have traveled, but not as extensively as some people. And I know that while you're competing, you're kind of stuck in your hotel. Like, you may not be able to eat all the food and see all the sights, but just getting around and like really figuring out, like, I don't know, like the best shows and where they're located. Like, I loved going to Texas, and this year I want to go to a few other states too. And that's how you're going to meet more people too. Like, just, different cities draw different areas. So I want to make more friends and, again, just get super connected and like fall in love with the sport even more.
Do you have any shows that you're hoping to go to for traveling, if you're willing to share?
I'll share it, do it. I try to be a little secretive, but honestly, it's like, who's gonna show up will show up. And that's the thing. I'm not gonna shy away from whoever's showing up. So right now, I have the Chicago Pro in mind. And then also before that is the Atlanta Pro. And that one's gonna be nice. That will be a good start for me. Linda Murray is the one hosting that, and she was the one that hosted the Savannah Pro, and that's where I placed second. So I just feel like kind of going back to one of her shows will be really good for me, like my confidence and just sort of getting my feet wet. And then the real fun of it is traveling, because driving to a show versus flying to a show poses so many different like challenges. And that was like my big thing last year. I'd never traveled by plane to a show before, but once that was a plan, I planned.
Yes, truly. Well,
Yeah.
that's
So
exciting. Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of see how you do at those and then determine your season.
correct. Because I have a few others in mind, but again, Justin, my coach, tries to bring me back to earth. Like, I'm pretty chill, but like when I get really excited and he's like, okay, let's see how we do here, and then we'll discuss those. And I'm like, oh, fine.
I know. I get so excited too every time I see a new show posted that I'm like, it's within our time frame of what we're aiming for. I send it to my coach. He's like, yep, that's a good one. But I'm like, I know he's just saying that because he knows like we're not making any decisions. It's just
Yeah.
like keep it on the radar, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's exciting. It's fun. I
Yeah.
love how many shows are popping up. It's the sport is growing, and that makes me just like so excited to see what's going to become of it, with years in the future.
Yeah, same, especially because I feel like so many people who like loved it in the past are now becoming promoters or they love it now and they're promoting now. So it's
Yeah.
cool because you see like the evolution of people who fell in love with the sport, creating experiences for other people to do the same.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Well, how can people follow this journey of yours and connect with you and potentially work with you as well?
Yeah, so I would say that my main social media I use is Instagram. So you're more than welcome to see me on Instagram. I'm usually posting about prep when that starts to ramp up. And then I also have links. So on my page, there'll be like a link where you can click. I have coaching, so you're more than welcome to apply. I work with mostly female. I'm not opposed to male as long as they're still lifestyle, though. Most people are going to be lifestyle, but I do have some competitive clients, which really excites me because that's like the thing that obviously brings me the most joy. But whether you're starting out or you're curious, like I am an open book. I am so excited to talk to anyone. Like I said, whether you can afford coaching or not, if you just want a girl to kind of like banter with and you've never competed, I'm your girl. I talk so much. I love it. You're never going to bother me. Like, let's chat.
I love that. That's amazing. So, I will put your Instagram handle and those links in the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section, which is alphabetized. And not only will you see our links to connect with us, but you're also going to see a full summary of the episode, a bulleted list of the topics we covered, as well as episode timestamps. So you can come back and listen to your favorite parts, or of course, share it with others and let them know what you loved about it and encourage them. And of course, reach out to us. Let us know, tag us on Instagram, give us your main takeaways. And I appreciate you for coming on, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.